Hey there, welcome to the 10th section of the Webflow course. Today I want to teach you about Lottie files, Lottie animations, and this is what we're going to create. As you scroll, you can see that this animation is being progressed. And this is actually an animated asset, which was created in After Effects. And Lottie has been popular very recently because it works on iOS, on web, on Android. So it's basically cross-platform, and you can find these animated assets pretty much in many places such as shape.so, where you can change the colors and then download the asset itself and basically use that as if it was an image. So as you can see here, this is the animation. And you can find a lot of animations nowadays on websites like lottiefiles.com, shape.so, and a bunch others. So let's get back to our website. We're gonna click on the hero section and then container. And this is where we're going to add a new Lottie file. So let's scroll down a little bit to find media, and then we have Lottie animation. Let's bring that and set the size to 600 by 450. And then we can choose the Lottie sequence to find one of the ones that we have from our assets folder. The one that we're going to use today is this one called lottie1.json. And voila, that's it. We just need to set up the interactions. First of all, you can customize your Lottie file, and if you go to the element settings, you're going to find that you can loop the animation without any interaction. We can just play it as if it was a movie, for example, and you can choose between SVG and Canvas. Now, SVG is a little bit slower, but it supports more stuff, and Canvas is more performant, but it supports less features. In our case, we're using something that is fairly simple. It's animated, and we can use Canvas. It's going to be a lot more performant for us. And you can already preview this. You can see that the animation is playing as if it was a movie. Now, the good news is that this is all in vector, which means that it's going to be sharp across all screens with different pixel densities. Okay, let's take a look at the interactions now. We can disable this or leave it enable. The interaction is going to take over. So we're going to go to interactions, and for element trigger, we're going to add a new interaction called while scrolling in view. So let's select this one and select a new action, play scroll animation, create a new one, call Lottie, let's say 1. From here, it's super simple. Let's add a new action called Lottie, and that's it. Now the 0% can be using a progress. So we have this scrub, which allows you to set the frame, and it's basically like a movie. So at 0%, we're gonna set at 0%, but at 100, we're going to set it at 100%. We can test this. And you're going to see that when you scroll, it's going to progress. But the thing is, our scroll is starting way too early. We can set it to 30% to start the animation, and that should be a lot better. So right here is when it's going to start at 30% visible. One thing to note with most animations such as Lottie is that it's going to take a performance hit, especially when you have a lot of animations happening at the same time. As you can see here, I have many animations here and these as well. So they're happening at the same time, and therefore it's going to potentially create lags as you scroll. The other thing to note is that the preview mode might not be as performant as the actual published website. So we can test it right here. So on the actual website, it's a lot smoother. So that's about it in terms of using Lottie. One of the biggest advantages of using Lottie is that instead of using these CSS techniques and these interactions that are very time consuming to coordinate, and you have to do it yourself as a designer typically, or you have to ask your developer to do it for you. Well, Lottie allows you to create all of those animations basically isolated as an asset, which means that you can save a lot of time from implementing those animations. And if you happen to know how to create animations in After Effects, then that's a huge plus. Or if you use a website like shape.so as well as Lottie files, then you don't need to know anything about animation, you just need to use the asset. Okay, so before we move on, let's fix the layout. Right now we have this Lottie animation and we actually want to put this layout right here, the text, the description. It's basically the same layout as this, so we're gonna reuse a lot of the same content block and we're gonna apply some new layout to our website. First of all, let's create a logo that is floating. So I'm gonna click on container and then press A to add a div block. I'm gonna put the div block before the Lottie animation. Then I'm gonna go to style, set this for logo as a class name, set the margin top and bottom to 100. Then I'm going to set this to flex and then center, so justify to center. As a result, I can create a new div block inside, which is for my logo. I'm going to set this one to width of 66 by 66. Then set the background to white, but at 80%. So I'm going to change the alpha to 80%. Set the border radius to 20 and add a little bit of drop shadow. So box shadow, then set the angle to 180, set distance to 20, blur to 40, and the color is going to be black at 15%. Finally, we're going to set this also as a flex so that we can center any image or icon inside. So align center, justify center as well. And now we're ready to insert. So selecting this div block, press A, select an image, choose the image. We're going to use the plugin image. So logo plugin, and voila. Now what we're gonna do is to create a flex layout where we have the Lottie file on the left side and then we have the content block on the right side. So let me close logo first and select hero, which contains our background, and that's really important. I'm going to create a new container because this is the content aspect. And it seems that container, the first one at least, for which we should probably be more specific, otherwise it's hard to differentiate between the default one and a custom one. So I'm going to rename this one to hero container, and now it's easier to differentiate. It seems that this one is not pushing the content, and that's because the hero section has a fixed height. So we're gonna have to remove that fixed height and set it to auto. For the new container, we can name this place container. Then we're gonna set this layout to flex as well. Then we can finally reuse some stuff. So in this case, we're gonna reuse the content block, and we can select the content block and then copy it. So Command C, paste it inside the place container. And so this is what we have. And we will also move the Lottie animation right inside the place container, but outside the content block. So we have the Lottie animation on the left side and the content block on the right side. We can also move the logo to be outside of the hero container so that they are more together. So what we have so far is the hero as a section. Then we have the hero container, which contains the content block, the tabs container, which contains the phone and the interactions. We have the logo, and then we have the place container, which is a flex layout, which has the Lottie animation on the left side and the content block. So when I copied this, all I did was to reuse the same elements for the content block using the same classes, but I don't need to use the same elements inside this container. So I can just remove, let's say, the title, as well as the purchase giant button, but I can keep the text, the button, and let's say the logos, which I should also rename the logos. When I did this, I also happen to affect here as well, because it's a class name change and both elements use the same class. The other thing is the content block is also a class. So this element is using the same class as this element. Therefore, if I make change to the class content block, such as I want to move this to the top, so distribute it to the top at the start instead of stretching, which is what is making this giant button here, I can just change this to start, and it's going to apply here as well. So this is kind of the start of a design system. Of course, we are going to learn how to use symbols later on, and I'm sure Webflow is going to come up with more features relating to design system to make your life easier. But essentially what we're trying to do is to reuse as many elements as possible using the same styles. So the only thing that's going to change is the title. If I go to the design, these two buttons are the same, these logos are the same, the text is the same, but the title is slightly bigger. So that's why I didn't want to reuse the same element. So we're going to create a new element in this content block. So I'm going to press A and click heading, and I'm going to put that at the very beginning. Then I'm going to reset the margin to 0. Set the font size to 40. The height to 44 is fine. The weight is going to be medium. The color is going to be black, and I'm going to paste some text. Perfect. Now if I go to the preview, you can see that I have the layout almost exactly like in my design. I can also check for adaptiveness. So we definitely have some issues. We're gonna start with the tablet, and let's take a look here. We can make the illustration smaller in a tablet. So for example, we can set it to 400 by 300. So we're having a little bit of a stretching issue. So what you can do is to switch back to SVG, which is a little bit more full-featured. And so that's going to solve our problem. Let's go back to style and then go to a smaller screen, so mobile landscape. And here we can see that we're definitely lacking space and we cannot really make the animation smaller. What we can do is for the mobile landscape and smaller, we can actually set the direction to vertical instead. And if we do that, we should align the items to center and even make the Lottie animation file to have a width of 100%. Like this, it's going to make sure that it's not going to be bigger than the mobile portrait. So this is what we have so far. If we go back to desktop, we have a fully adaptive layout with animations using Lottie, and we learn how to reuse a content block and add a new title. The Lottie animations itself is super easy to customize, so I can just replace the Lottie sequence and use any of the Lottie files that I get from other websites such as shape.so, which I can just drag and drop new ones like this one and replace it, and it's gonna fit my layout super easily, and have even the same scroll animation that I set up, because all I'm doing essentially here is to replace the sequence, so the file of the animation. And I think that's really neat. It's really flexible. I'm just gonna put it back to the way it was designed. Awesome. So let's publish this and then give a final test. And voila, our website is really coming along. But we're still not done yet. We're gonna learn next about CMS and designing with data so that we can create content that is easily loopable and have so many items coming from a CMS or a content management system, and other people in our team can actually take care of that content. We just need to set up the implementation of the content. It's going to be super dynamic and really easy to customize. So I hope to teach you that technique in the next session. See you.